Hey there everyone, I'm Jakejames Lugo and welcome to the channel, where you'll find some of the most fair and honest game reviews out here. And this time we're continuing my Star Wars month content that I've been posting up on the channel for the entirety of May. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying everything that's been going up. We're going to actually continue stuff with a brand new game review, or pretty much a classic game getting reviewed on here. And this one is for my OT fans out there. If you're down with the OT, put it in the comment section down below. For anybody that doesn't know what OT stands for, that stands for Original Trilogy, the original 3 Star Wars movies that were released back in the day. That includes Star Wars, or A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, which ties directly into the game that we're talking about today, Super Star Wars for the Super Nintendo. For those who are fans of the Star Wars galaxy, video games based on the iconic franchise is nothing new, but a select few of them released over the years have achieved a legendary status. If you're like me and grew up during the 90s console wars with the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, one game series is considered among the most popular based on a galaxy far, far away. Super Star Wars was released for the Super Nintendo in 1992 and is the first of 3 games based on the original trilogy of films. This one is based on Episode 4, A New Hope, while the sequels that came later on are based on The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi respectively. A funny thing that I discovered while researching for this review was that the Sega Genesis was going to get a version of Super Star Wars in 1993. The game was cancelled before it could be officially released. However, development on it was completely finished. No official reason was ever given for its cancellation. Eventually, this lost version of Super Star Wars was ROM dumped online in 2020. Getting back to the official release of the game though, the events of Super Star Wars follow A New Hope closely, with a little room for exaggeration. You control Luke Skywalker at the start, and eventually get the ability to play as both Han Solo and Chewbacca too. A big omission, however, is Princess Leia being a playable character, but that would change in the sequels that followed afterwards. There's not much else that I could say about the plot. The game is A New Hope rendered in 16-bit with the greatest care possible at the time, which is all that any Star Wars fan could have asked for. Now I do have to say, the visuals of this game do work wonders for the entire experience. It not only looks super colorful and we get some awesome renditions of classic Star Wars creatures and locations, but the Super FX chip for the Super Nintendo really does some awesome stuff with some of the stages, including when you actually get to use a land speeder on Tatooine, or when you're flying an X-Wing during the Death Star trench run. This stuff looks really freaking cool. Now, obviously, there's a lot of creative liberties that are taken with this game. As far as the story itself, it's still faithfully Star Wars A New Hope throughout the entirety of the game, but there was no big sandcrawler location that Luke had to explore fighting Jawas. There was no big sandworm fight that Luke had in the desert of Tatooine. Stuff like that is obviously for the game itself. But still, I at least appreciate that we still get the story and some of the cutscenes and certain big bullet points of Star Wars A New Hope with a little extra flair and spice thrown into the mix. Now, there's a couple little nitpicks that I do have with this game, including some of the stuff that we don't see in this game that is a big part in the movie, including the lightsaber fight between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan. You only get to play as Luke, Han, and Chewie throughout the entirety of the game, and for whatever reason, you don't get to mess with Obi-Wan Kenobi. However, I think that it would have been really awesome to have just one of those platforming or action sequences when you're fighting against Darth Vader using a lightsaber, because you do get a lightsaber as Luke at some point in the game when you actually receive it from Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's totally cool, but for whatever reason, they decided not to have that fight in there, especially when you're actually going through the Death Star in the later portions of the game. There is, however, a boss fight against Darth Vader's TIE Fighter when you're going through the trench and you're actually trying to blow up the Death Star. That's kind of cool, but if I really had a choice between those two types of boss fights, I would have rather had the lightsaber fight. I just think it would have been a much more cooler sequence. And speaking of which, let's get into the gameplay proper, because a lot of people grew up with this game and had a lot of fun and fond memories of it. But was it all that it was cracked up to be? Was it as good as we remember? Super Star Wars came out during a time when the platforming genre was dominant. Every console was saturated with action platformers, so it's no surprise to see that done here. From the very beginning, you're jumping around and shooting enemies with your blaster, aiming to reach the end of a stage and tackle a boss fight. After the first few levels, you unlock the ability to switch control between Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Chewie as you progress through the rest of the game. You'll be blasting Jawas and swamp rats, jumping to platforms atop of a sandcrawler, and cutting down stormtroopers with your lightsaber. Each character has their own perks for controlling them, which adds a little bit of variety to the experience. Within each stage are power-ups that boost the power of your blaster, increase your health, grant you a shield, and clear out the screen when you pick up a thermal detonator. This is all super cool, of course, but immediately you'll get slapped down to reality with the game's harsh difficulty curve. And I mean really harsh. I hate to admit it, but the Super Star Wars games are notoriously hard, downright sadistic at times. A lot of this I can really believe is on accident, most likely due to a lack of playtesting for each stage during their development. Even on the lowest difficulty setting, this game will severely test your patience and your frustration. Not only do you have to deal with infinitely spawning enemies that are attacking you, but the boss fights at the end of each stage are tedious and aggravating. You hardly deal any damage with your attacks, while the boss could smack you around like some bantha fodder. Even standard enemies you run into during every stage will eat away at your life and power right through your blaster attacks, and they come at you in packs. Things can get incredibly tough. However, if you manage to push through the game's most challenging moments, you'll enjoy viewing some of Episode 4's biggest scenes recreated in 16-bit. The most exciting and unique level has to be the final battle on the Death Star and the Trench Run. It's rendered beautifully with the use of the Super FX ability on the Super Nintendo and is really high octane. First, you have to shoot down TIE fighters and cannons on the surface of the Death Star, and then afterwards, you get to be part of the trench run to launch the torpedo at the exhaust port and destroy the Death Star. It's exciting and looks fantastic. Overall, this is a neat approach to capturing the best moments of the film, but also letting them be fun to play through as a video game. In typical 16-bit gaming fashion, this game does have some cheats that you can mess around with in order to change up your experience. You actually input a code at the main menu through the use of a second controller, and you're able to mess around with certain aspects of the game, including being able to go to any level that you want, being able to play as any character on any level that you want, getting your lightsaber early in the game, way before you actually get it, giving yourself other power-ups, which is pretty darn cool and actually a necessity sometimes for getting through some of the stages, and then all these other little features that you can mess around with. Stuff like that is pretty darn cool. Again, this is something that you saw typically in like that era of gaming, but other than that, there's no other extras once you beat the game. There's no other secret hidden bonus content. There's no hidden playable characters. You don't get to play as Obi-Wan. You don't get to play as Princess Leia. You don't get any of that other stuff. It's pretty much a straightforward experience from start to finish. Other than that, you're just getting what you get here. So all in all, can I recommend that you guys check out Super Star Wars for the Super Nintendo? I still think this is a fun game. Granted, I have little nitpicks here and there, this is still one of those fun games that's set in the Star Wars universe. It has a lot of great aspects to it. It has awesome visuals, it has some good music, it's definitely super challenging to the point that it's almost borderline unfair, but overall as a package, at least an experience that's on the Super Nintendo, this is one of those must-plays that I feel like everybody could really enjoy. If you're someone that's a casual Star Wars fan that hasn't really seen all the movies and is not super deep into the lore, you can still enjoy this game and still get at least a good bullet point idea of what the first Star Wars movie is all about. This is still something that's just made to be fun to play through rather than anything else. And there you go, everyone. Those are my overall thoughts about Super Star Wars for the Super Nintendo. This game is a classic. A lot of people grew up playing it. I didn't do so as much. I played it much later. But I have to say, I still enjoyed it despite my little nitpicks. I still think this is a classic. It's a must-play. I feel like this is just one of those games that is great to celebrate the legacy of Star Wars, especially being based on the first movie that was ever released. I personally played this game on the PlayStation 4 via PSN, but if you want to be able to play it on original hardware, I'm pretty sure you could visit any sort of like secondhand gaming store and find it for pretty cheap. It's not that hard to find. My original plan for this video was to cover all 3 Super Star Wars games here on the channel. However, this was the only Super Star Wars game that was actually given a modern day release. For whatever reason, we never got Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi that was also on Super Nintendo for any other online store. Could be for legal reasons, could be for like copyright and licensing, but here's hoping at some point that'll actually happen and I'll be able to cover on the channel proper. But as always, with any game that I do cover on this channel, that's just my opinion about Super Star Wars. Let me know your own thoughts and opinions about this game down below in the comments section. Tell me, are you a big fan of Star Wars? Did you grow up with this game as a kid? What are some of your favorite Star Wars games that are out there? It could be for any platform. Or what are some of the worst Star Wars games? The absolute trash, the bantha fodder of the entire galaxy. Talk to me about that stuff down below in the comments section. And don't forget guys, always remember, the Force will be with us, always. Thanks a bunch for watching the video, I really appreciate it a ton. I'll have more videos for you to enjoy here on the side that I know you'll love. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon too. Don't forget to visit my Patreon linked below for early access to new videos every week, and join the Discord server too. It's linked in the description box below. You'll definitely love being a part of it. Thanks again, peace out, and stay epic everybody.